Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Quentin and I have a lot in common. We were both really taken aback by that Wansley's clapboard factory explosion. I'm Otto, I'm alcoholic. I'm from Plano, Texas. My home group is the Legacy Group. We meet noon and 7:30 every day. And my sobriety date is July 11th, 1985. For that, I'm grateful. I want to say thanks to Paula and Michelle for pick me. I love to come to California. This is my fourth trip this year to come to California to share. And we've got a for sale sign in front of our house right now. And if anybody's looking for a house in Plano, we're looking for a house in California. So, it's pretty, you can tell I'm alcoholic because I'm trying to move to some place that's broke and has no services. I don't know about you guys. I find it very humorous that I'm labeled a spiritual speaker. I asked somebody, what's the difference between a spiritual speaker and all the others? Did you know, Howard, the difference between a spiritual speaker and all the others? No, the spiritual speaker speaks on Sunday. So, now you all know why I'm the spiritual speaker. It has very little to do with my recovery. I have to catch a plane this afternoon, so this is unusual. I usually from on, and I like to talk, and I've got a lot to say, and most people don't mind. And I like what Paul O said once upon a time when he was sharing at the club where I was getting sober. If you get done before I do, feel free to excuse yourself. It won't bother me a bit. But when Paul O came to the Western Club in Oklahoma City during my first year of sobriety, it was so crowded that we had to sit in the halls, and we couldn't see him, some of us, and we just had to listen. But in that hour and a few minutes, he changed my life. And I know the power of a good AA speaker. And you guys have heard some fabulous AA speakers this weekend. And I know they made a difference in my life. The next time my elephant goes pulling on that rope, I'm not going to worry about it. By the way, whose credit cards are these? I'm better than I used to be. I'm a product of the alcoholic home. I come by my alcoholism honestly. Both my parents are alcoholic. Neither one of them claimed that. I labeled them that. Yeah, I've heard people say, yeah, you can't do that. That's baloney. Alcoholism is a very diagnosable disease. Let me tell you. And if you drink with the fervor and the insanity that my parents drank with, well, you know that it's good to know that you're alcoholic. It explains a lot. But growing up, I didn't know that. I was the second of 4 children. I'm the oldest boy. I had an older sister, 2 younger brothers. And the house we grew up in was very chaotic and very confusing and oftentimes violent. And grew up with a lot of crazy rules, just crazy rules. They were part of the reading on the family there was about the neurotic child. I was neurotic, long before I got to be very old, because Dad would say one thing and do another, and he'd ask me to do something, and I'd do it, and then I'd get punished for doing what he asked me to do, and you just wonder what the hell's going on here. And I'm trying so hard to please my father. My father was my first higher power. There's one that has all power. That one is Dad. You'd best mind him now. And if you didn't mind Dad, there was hell to pay. And I pretty much thought that that's how God was. That if I could win God's favor, if I could be good enough, if I could get in harmony with His will for me, then maybe I would be able to receive a little grace. But my life was one that I was not proud of. I didn't like me very much, and I had some very delusional thinking. My idea of self was very distorted. I'll give you an example. I was a stud in high school. Class president, top teen, student council, friendliest boy, MC the pep rallies, head of the paper drives. Dated the cheerleader, and just one teacher gave me a gift upon graduation. And it was a big deal because I'm the only member of my family of origin to graduate from high school. Neither of my parents, my older brother, or my older sister, or my younger brothers, any finished high school. But I liked high school, and it was pretty much downhill from there. But I was kind of like our speaker last night. I was a good test taker. I could sit in class and listen, and I wasn't much of a reader, but I could do real well just by listening and get by. And I went to my 10-year high school reunion, still drinking, and I was on my second wife, and she was a skinny little girl that, we bought her some big boobs and to get ready for the reunion, and we are disco dancing fools, I don't know if those of you that remember, but the little danskin tops, man, if you got big boobs in a danskin top, you're the hit of the party. And she's with me, Now, you have to bear in mind that at my 10-year reunion, I was very much crippled from wounds that I had sustained in Vietnam. And so at my 10-year reunion, I was voted least changed. I thought, now that is really cool that a crippled up guy like me could be voted least changed. What an honor. Later I got into therapy. And the therapist said, all they were saying was, you are yet to grow up. You act like you're still in high school. Very immature. Damn those truths. And then at my 20-year high school reunion, I was 1 year sober. 1 year sober, and very emotional. I don't know about you guys, but I had drank so that I would not feel for a long time. In the house I grew up in, we weren't allowed to feel. And you couldn't feel bad. Don't feel bad. If you feel bad, there's something wrong with you. You're not allowed to cry. Big boys don't cry. You want something to cry about? I'll give you something to cry about. And, that we don't talk about it. Don't rock the boat. Don't talk about nothing. And so, I'm very sensitive at 1 year sober. I'm crying, over everything. Somebody's, brings water to the meeting. Oh, it's so generous. So anyway, I was still a stud, and so I'm the MC of the 20-year reunion, and we really knocked ourselves out on the committee, much like these people who've worked so hard to make this happen. And I hope that you all will listen to what I'm about to say, all of you that work so hard, and next year's chair. It was great. I had a great time. We had neon signs on the back of the wall, class of 1966. We had a really cool old rock band playing the old songs. And we had old GTOs and Mustangs and Chevy 2 Novas and stuff parked out in the entry. We worked hard putting this together. And one of the things we did was we gave away albums from the 60s to people who'd come the farthest, the person who'd been married the longest, the person who'd been married the most times, just who had the most kids, and just different things. But we had what we thought was one very nice award, and today I know it was just a really immature award put together by some of us that were still in high school. And it was the Oh What a Night Award. We were the Northwest Knights, and it was the Oh What a Night Award for the classmate that everybody enjoyed seeing the most. A popularity contest. 20 years old, 38, still trying to get you all to like me. I need you all to like me so much because I don't like me. But if I'm fooling you, I'm doing okay. If I can just get you to like me, then I must be okay. And so I'm opening up envelopes and handing out albums from the 60s, and finally it's the Oh What a Night Award for the classmate everybody enjoyed seeing the most, and I open it up, and it's me. There's more people there than are here now. There's about 500 people at this reunion, about over half of them classmates. And I was so touched. I mean, I wanted to win, but the idea of winning was just too much. And I'm just trying to say thank you. And I'm kind of like our trip winner. I'm blowing snot bubbles out of my nose. And high school was wonderful. I had to be helped to my seat. And all night long, people come pat on me. Oh, Otto, we're so glad you're here. We're so glad to see you. And I just thought, oh, God is good. This is a long ways from where I was a year ago. Man, I didn't even care if there was a God a year ago. And look now, as I bask in His grace. I had the most wonderful time. But after the reunion's over, we've got a hospitality suite, and we're moving up there, and I'm cleaning up the registration table. And on the registration table happened to be the ballot box. And on the ballot box was the tally sheet. On the tally sheet was the truth. Now, the truth will set you free. Getting in harmony with the truth is a big part of getting sober. Getting right-sized and just getting in harmony with reality. Well, reality is that of all those 500 people at this reunion, only 25 bothered to cast a ballot. The other 475 had their own agenda, had what they wanted to do, who they wanted to see. They didn't give a damn about the food. They didn't care about the music. They were doing their own thing. And of the 25 ballots cast, 23 of my classmates got 1 vote each, and I got 2. Now that is a true story. And what's really cool is that at a year's sobriety, I could laugh about that and share that in meetings. And at the 25-year reunion, I shared it to the class. And won the dry eye and a half. Anyway, I'm very delusional. The way I see things is not always the way things are. It's rarely the way things are. I suffer from a bias and a prejudice of self. I'm very self-centered. I'm very self-seeking. I'm very self-righteous. I have no idea that I'm those things because I'm class president, top teen student council, and an athlete, and I'm a good guy. And plus, I'm going to school and nobody else is, and I'm the good kid. I'm the hero child in my family. For those of you that are familiar with the classic dysfunctional family, and my parents married and divorced each other 3 times before I got out of high school. And my brothers are all married and divorced, married and divorced, married and divorced, married and divorced. My sister is married and divorced, married and divorced, and married and divorced. She married the same guy 3 times. I'm married and divorced, and married and divorced. And it hurt. Those women didn't understand me. Anyway, if I said that because if we don't recover, we repeat. I wanted to be different than the home I grew up in. And I, like so many, said, I will never be like my dad. I'll never batter the kids and batter the wives. It was so chaos and frightening in the home that we grew up in that my little brother Jack, who was 4 years younger than me, by the time he was 10, had colitis, which is an old person's disease. It comes with stress. It's ulcers of the intestines. And he had to go to a children's convalescent hospital and have half of his intestines removed. And they had to unhook his rectum, and he had to go to the restroom out of a colostomy. And very sick. And we'd go out to that hospital and we'd see the sick kids that are at the children's hospital. And, there's thalidomide babies and cancer kids and burned kids and deformed kids. And in my family, you don't ask questions. You don't ask questions. And but on Sunday, we'd all get spiffed up and we'd go to a really nice church, the First Christian Church in Oklahoma City. And I'd go to Sunday school and we'd sing, Jesus loves the little children. And I'd think, he needs to get out to the hospital. And it was confusing to me that if Jesus loves all the little children, how come there's so many sick kids out there, And I had I'm a victim. I'm the victim mentality. Some of you, are just good old drunks. Others, have excuses for why we drank the way we did. If you were me, you'd drink too. If you knew how hard things have been, you'd probably buy me a drink. Life's not fair. I don't know about you guys. I've been screwed since day one. I was born Christmas Day. Say what you want, it sucks. And, if I had to do another 4-step right now, it'd be at the top of my resentment list, Because, this old Merry Birthday, Happy Christmas, that shit don't get it. One, not particularly pricey, So that, I know today that my parents and my family busted their chops to try to make my birthday special, but I was insatiable. There was not enough that anyone could do to please me. There was never enough for me. In my family, there's a better chance of a squad car showing up at Christmas than Santa. It's like, my father had left for the last time, and the police would come. And, my brothers are drug dealers, and my family's the kind of family where we give each other alcohol and drugs for presents. That's a suitable birthday or Christmas present. One Christmas I got cocaine from my brother. So I thought he was mad at me, because you'd never know because we don't talk to each other, And in my family, there's so many distant, every kid's got 3 or 4 sets of grandparents. Because everybody's got half brothers and half sisters, and it's I don't have a family tree. We've got what we call the family thicket, and trying to get through that would just rip your flesh off, And I never dreamed that myself or my brothers or my mom or my dad were alcoholic. It's the old birds of a feather flock together, and we just looked real normal to all the other people that we hung out with. Didn't everybody have their birthdays and family functions at the tavern? That's what we did. We'd go to the tavern. We'd have lunch at the tavern. When we were kids, I'm going in and playing parlay cards and dominoes and shuffleboard, and I like to watch my mom and dad dance at the tavern. It seemed like the only time they liked each other was when they were dancing, and so it was interesting. I left home with lots of rules like quitters never win and winners never quit, and exceptions are made for exceptional people, and practice makes perfect, and where there's a will, there's a way, and you can do anything you put your mind to. Don't ever tell a lie. That stuff damn near killed me. Because where there's a will, where I've got a will involved, there's more often a conflict than a way. And if you practice something that you don't do very well, and you practice doing it wrong over and over and over, the muscle memory you never hit that long golf ball shot. You just get more muscle memory on how to hit that big slice. So, I was believing a lot of things that weren't true. And I was happy to get out of that house. I went off to Oklahoma State University. Rated number 5 for the first time ever, and they lose to Houston yesterday. Can you believe that? Just makes me want to chew that microphone off. These guys have been torturing me since 1967. We beat OU my freshman year, and we haven't won a game since. Anyway, I went to school, and I'm not as sharp as I think. The old test taker doesn't do that good. I should have known. In my family, as I look back on it now, they got a big sign posted next to our gene pool: no diving. It's genetically we're not the finest, and so I didn't do very well in school. One of the problems was not going to class, and I drank in high school, and we had some fun, and getting drunk was not uncommon. I mean, we set out to get drunk, so I never thought there was anything strange about that. But when I went to college, I always had good intentions, always intended to go to class, always intended to do the studies, always intended to show up for work. I just didn't make it. And the classes were too early, I always had an excuse. It was never the fact that I drank too much. I never saw my drinking as a problem. I am not one who ever tried to quit drinking and found that he could not. Until I met you, I never tried to quit drinking. To me, that was a ridiculous proposition. Quit drinking? Why would I do that? You don't know where I came from. I come from a home where I hear my mother scream and open the bedroom door and look down into that converted garage, and I see my father on my mother's chest with his shoulders pinned to the bed, and he's hitting her in the face with his fist, and the blood's on the bed and blood's on the wall, and he points at me and tells me to go back to my room, and I do. And then I get up the next day and I go to school, and I'm one of the friendliest boys in school. And my little brother Jack, the one that was so sick, when my dad left for the last time, he would batter my mother. He'd come in, take her TV, take her stereo, take her purse, take whatever he needed, and to get his drugs. And one time she found him; he was living in the doghouse behind our house. And we always had big dogs, big mean dogs. I don't mean to judge anybody, but sober people, it seems to me, have little dogs. Newcomers still have their big dogs. Because I was told all you have to do is change everything. Change your whole damn life, Otto. If you want to get sober, do everything different. If you've been doing it, don't do it anymore. And if you haven't done it, give it a shot, So they go through the door, trying to get you, dog, had to go. And what was I talking about? I love dogs. Oh, my brother. My mom called me one night, and I came down. I'm the hero child in my family. I'm the rescuer, and so I came down, and Jack had battered my mother and torn the house up, and the Bible's tore up and strewn all over the house. And he's unconscious on the floor, and he's got this white, all around his face where he's been huffing paint. And that's when they found him living in the doghouse behind. It was a big doghouse. Big dogs. And I called the police, and they took him to jail. He uses his one phone call to call and say he's going to kill my baby daughter. And this is my family. My family's full of threats. I sleep with pistols for fear of my own brothers. Fighting and chaos and choosing sides. And anyway, I went. They served a warrant on him for using stolen credit cards, and I went before the judge. And my mom stood in the back of the courtroom crying, and my brother's he's pissed, and I'm standing before the judge, and I'm saying, Your Honor, please incarcerate my brother. You are constantly giving him probation. Don't. He almost killed my uncle recently. He's violent. He needs help. He sniffs pain. He's sick. He really needs psychiatric help. And the judge said, this is very unusual. The family usually wants some, got him some slack, but sent my brother to the state penitentiary, Big Mac, McAllister, Oklahoma, where they put him to work painting. Now, I don't know about you guys, but it really pisses me off when my best thinking sucks and my best plans don't work. And that's when I stopped keeping caps to the bottles. Yeah. I opened it, I'm going to drink it. They put him to work painting. He got high. And they transferred him to a holding cell to send him back to maximum security where he hanged himself. And I felt so responsible. Not only did I kill all the wheat in Kansas, I had killed my little brother. And I don't know if you all ever should have on yourself. I should have all over myself. I should have called, I should have visited, I should have written, I should have done this, I should have done that. I always felt very responsible for the things that were going on around me. I think one of the reasons was that distorted sense of self, and the other was that this is what I'd been taught. If it is to be, it's up to me. And life hasn't been fair. Life's been difficult. I didn't do good in school. I got drafted. They didn't tell me that was, in the future there. I was in ROTC. I thought that got me out whether I had grades or not. Wrong. More of my best thinking, it sucks. They drafted me, and in 1967 I entered service as went to basic training in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and then they He's been there. By the way, did you notice that the two people with the longest sobriety in the room were both military? Did you happen to notice that? And I'd also like for you to observe that there aren't as many military people in recovery as there should be. We need to reach out to our veterans. They give you an aptitude test in basic training as to what you should be. And, and you answer all these questions, and yes, and I can do that, and I can do that. And I thought, I'll be a general's aide. I'll be in charge of the NCO club. Put me in the motor pool. I love cars. I mean, we grew out. The house I grew up in is about 900 square feet. 6 of us living in it. One little bathroom. You could touch all 4 walls. And it was right outside the second turn of the Jalopy Speedway, where they race their cars. And when I thought it was so cool that when the race cars would come around the track, they'd throw mud over the fence and into our yard. Location, location, location. It's real hard to get from that 900 square foot house outside turn 2 to Ventura, California. Oh. My wife wants to come. Anyway, they put me in the infantry. They found me most suited to carry a rifle and to be a trained killer. My dad had been teaching me to kill since I was 10, and I'm not real bright, so it's okay. But I am a leader, so I went to advanced infantry training in NCOCS and became a Betty Crocker sergeant. Did you get to do that? No. I figure if I'm going to the war, I'd much rather go as a leader than a follower. The idea of take that hill sounds a lot better if it's coming out of my mouth instead of somebody else's, And, but I went to Vietnam after a year and doing everything I could do to avoid going to Vietnam, hoping that we'd win the war. And Vietnam was something that there was not enough training for. Could not be prepared enough for. I could not have grown up in a violent enough home to prepare me for combat, for what it's like to kill and see men killed. And it was a horrific experience. And I think I just at age 20, went into a fantasy world. It was the only way I could do the things they were asking me to do. And I was fortunate. I didn't have to stay in Vietnam very long. I was there about 3 months before I was wounded. It was 1968. It was the year of the Tet Offensive, and it was a really difficult year in Vietnam. And by the way, welcome home, guys, all of you that have been there. And I didn't see anybody coming home. The only way you got home was you got wounded or killed. And we were up in the Highlands fighting the NVA. They had regular uniforms and artillery and stuff. We'd gone in on a hot LZ, and that meant we were making an assault where we knew the enemy was. And they were ready for us, and they kicked our butts. They blew us up. We couldn't get enough guys in fast enough before, the rockets are coming out of the trees and blowing down the helicopters. And we've got men screaming and burning to death and guys being blown out of the doors of helicopters. And we're in jungle where you can't see each other. And the CEO radios down that he's going to drop some firefighting equipment into us, and he's going to drop some plastic explosives. He wants us to blow down some trees, see if we can enlarge the landing area and get some help into us. And there weren't but about 30 of us on the ground, and it was a very large force that we were facing. As he hovered over the LZ to drop that stuff to us, there came another rocket, boy, and took his helicopter down. Fell into the fire with the others. And me and a kid named Henderson got as many of those guys as we could out of that helicopter, and then I was watching it, and this one door gunner must have been 70 feet high. It was treetop level, and when that rocket hit, it just blew him out of the door and into the jungle. And so we went into the jungle during this fight and trying to find him. We really did believe that you don't leave anybody behind. And we got to him because he was gurgling and making lots of noise. His legs were blown off. His face was destroyed. His arms were destroyed. But he was still alive. We used our bootlaces to put tourniquets on his legs, high on the thigh. And we put pressure bandages all over him, trying to keep him from bleeding to death and to muffle his cries so that he wouldn't draw fire. A medic finally came and took over, and I never saw that kid again, never knew his name, never knew who he was. But he haunted me for the rest of my adult life. I would see him at night when I lay down to go to sleep. I'd never seen. He was horribly wounded. And the next day in the same fight, I walked up on an enemy position and was ambushed, and I was shot twice by automatic weapon fire. And one round went through my left ankle joint, and the other round went through my left hip joint. And if you've ever heard the expression, we're going to blow your ass off. Happened to me. The gluteus maximus, this big butt thing you got over here. I know some of you ladies would like to get rid of it. Just sign up. Go serve, because it can come off in an instant. And they blew my ass off. And the enemy got out of their hole. They came and took my watch off my wrist. They took my fresh ruck, because we'd just gone in with weapons and water. And they took my weapon. My helmet was off. I could feel that gun pointed at the top of my head. And I was not fearful enough. Now, I was in shock, but I was conscious. But I was not fearful enough to think that God might help me. At 21, I had already given up on God. The home that I lived in, if there's a God, where the hell's he been? The war that I'd been in, if there's a God, where the hell has he been? If there's a God, why the Holocaust? Jewish people are religious. We'd go to church, and the minister at our church was a fiery redhead, and I liked him. Bill Alexander was his name. And one Sunday we showed up, and he didn't. And he died in a plane crash coming back to the service. And everyone was really saddened by that. But I couldn't understand how God's right-hand man could be taken out like that, But I didn't talk to anybody about it. That's the nature of my alcoholism, seclusion. And so I just had all these doubts. But on September 22nd, 1968, I quit wondering. That was the last straw. That young man the day before, where was God for him? When I listened to that kid burned to death in that helicopter, and he's screaming for his mother, and we can't get him out. where was God? And I decided right there and then, if there's a God, I don't want anything to do with him. On September 22nd, 1968, I became self-propelled, self-reliant. I was in the hospital, when I've been in the hospital 4 months, I turned 21. And when I turned 22, I was still there. They had completely blown the ball off the femur and took my hip, shattered the pelvis, and I developed a gross staph infection. And it would not heal. And they just kept cutting pieces of me off. They'd leave windows in these casts. I wear body casts from my chest down. I'm in plaster from my chest down, so I can't move anything but my arms. And my arms got so sore from the injections and everything that they just became like balsa wood. And they would inject me with pain medicine, and it would just run right back out around the needle and down my arm, and I'd get no relief. I really think I know what it's like to have been tortured. And I felt pretty sorry for myself. You know, the war was very unpopular. It was a televised war. And, you know, that's why they don't let the camera crews go in now. You know, they're very careful about what you get to see about war, because if you were to see what our young men are doing in Iraq and Afghanistan, you would protest. If you had to see it, you would protest it. You could not feel strongly enough about being there to justify the horror of war. But they were showing the horror of war with dinner every night in '68. So we were not popular when we came home. The war was not popular. They sent me to a hospital in Yokota, Japan, then a hospital in California, a hospital in Texas, and I wound up in a hospital in Oklahoma, Reynolds Army Hospital, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, so I could be close to my family. And they told me I probably wouldn't walk, and because they couldn't get it to grow together. They were trying to just get it to fuse. They'd fused my ankle in a dropped position so that I could pivot off my toe with my leg rotated out like this. And they were trying to get the hip to fuse solid. But with the infection, it wouldn't do it. And what I ended up with was called a fibrous union, where it was just soft tissue that held the hip together and in place, not the bone. And I had about 5 degrees of motion. And that was good, except that it was bone-on-bone motion. And I lived with chronic daily pain, terrible bone-on-bone pain from the time I was 21. I had an open draining wound in my buttocks for 7 years, pus draining out of my ass. And I wore great big gauze bandages over here. I carry a billfold there now. There's no money in it, but it's kind of like I used to roll up a wash rag and stick it down the front. You know, well, now I stick it down the back. So it looks like, you know, it looks like there's something there. And felt pretty sorry for me. I married my high school sweetheart while I was in a hospital in that cast. You know, her parents didn't want us to do that, but I was afraid she'd get away and nobody'd want me all crippled up. So I had my best friends bring her down, and the hospital chaplain married us there in the room. And my buddies were pretty clever. I had this big bar between my legs to keep that cast stable. When they took a pair of cutoffs, slid them up the side, put them on me like a diaper, laced them up the sides with the shoelaces, threw a big sweatshirt over me, and called that dressed. And the hospital said, okay, one night, and they took me out and threw me on a mattress in the back of a pickup truck, and away to the Holiday Inn, me and my new bride, my bedpan, and my urinal went. And we ate chicken and drank beer and ate pills and consummated that wedding. And then she went back home, and it was over a year before I was released from the hospital and could go home. Of course, part of my motives were selfish. I knew I made more as a married sergeant than I did as a single sergeant. So while I'm laying there, I might as well. Am I spiritual yet? I forgot to start my timer. I had a timer up here so that I'd get done on time. I worked real hard over here turning everything off except the timer. And I was just going to talk for about an hour and 10 minutes. Reset, start. Okay. Yeah, there's not much time left, is there? I got to catch a plane 4:30. Anyway, wound up in, I'm divorced and unemployed. I did go back to college. I got a degree, and I I achieved everything that I wanted to achieve. I'm an overachiever and a perfectionist. I thought those were attributes. So I'm a ladder climber, and I'm successful in business. And I'm always the leader. I don't know why I always end up being the leader. I think it's because I don't trust anybody else to do it. But I wound up unemployed and unemployable, divorced again, didn't own a dog, didn't own a cat, living in a little house on my VA disability pension, sleeping on a mattress on the floor because, see, I'm an alcoholic. And I drank. And I used the excuse of my chronic pain to drink. I used the excuse of my wife that doesn't come home nights to drink. I used the excuse of the nightmares of the horrors of war to drink. I used the excuse of my brother's suicide to drink. I used the excuse of my brain attacks me when I lay down to go to sleep to drink. I drink. It's what I do. I can't imagine my life without alcohol and drugs. I eat dry. I like to wear 505 blue jeans. Got the little pocket right there. That's where I carry my pills. Just all day long. Pop, pop, pop. If you see me popping, what you doing? Tic tac. Can I have one? Oh, all gone. Sorry. And I'd run everybody off. I'm estranged from my daughter. I don't see my children anymore. My drinking has really progressed to the point where I don't go out and dance. I used to love to dance, and I might be crippled, but you load me up, I can't feel the pain. They all want me. I know they do. Again, that distorted sense of self. I remember at the end of my drinking, I'd run off everybody. I'm a big auto racing fan. I went to the Daytona 500 and Florida Speed Weeks by myself. I'm in Tampa, Florida, for the state fair, and they're running dirt cars on a mile dirt. And I grew up across the street from the racetrack. Naturally, I'm a racing fan, so. But my drinking had really progressed to a point where it was just ridiculous. And so I had to go by myself. Nobody would go with me. And I met these guys while I was there, and we were having a pretty good time. We watched the cars go over circle at Tampa, and it was the state fair was going on. And so after the races, we walked around the state fairgrounds, and we, threw balls at Cupid dolls, and girl watching is one of our favorite things to do. We watched the girls, and we ate corn dogs, and then we went out to a nightclub. And the nightclub's my environment, because I'll drink beer, but I'd much rather drink bourbon. I'm a bourbon drinker. I don't know what it is. A little Coke, lots of bourbon. And I like to dance. I'm a dancing fool. I'm a fool. So anyway, it's, I don't know what night it is, but we're at this club called the Pit. And I remember that because it had a big hole in the middle, a pit. And you'd go down into the pit to dance. And everybody'd stand at the top and socialize and look down into the pit to see what you were doing. And, I just love being in the pit dancing because I know you're all watching me. Reminds me of that, what is love? When they did that on Saturday Night Live, I went, oh. And, I'd hang around at the top and I wasn't dancing. I'd dangle my fake gold jewelry off the edge there. I got my fake alligator boots on. I'm just trolling for one of you little darlings, which one am I going to pick out? Went home alone a lot. All these women come up and tell these stories about promiscuity. What the hell was wrong with me? I was in those places. It was closing time, and is it because I picked my nose or what? Anyway, this night I've been drinking 12, 14 hours. I've been drinking all day since the races earlier that day, and I am drunk. And, if you've ever done this, you know what I'm talking about. Where you've just drank too much. I stagger out into the parking lot. And it's cold outside, but I'm sweating. I'm holding onto the car so I don't fall down. Pretty soon, It just comes roaring out of my mouth, you know. We're talking projectile vomit, you know. It's on these poor people's cars. It's on my pants. It's on my fake alligator boots. It's up my nose. Oh, God. It tastes like whatever battery acid must taste like or something. Go back in the club and get another drink. That's alcoholism, folks. Tell that little girl, the one I'm moving on, cute little blonde, nice package, big sore on her lip right here.
You just keep talking.
Whoa, man, I got sick. I promise you I will never, ever, ever again, as long as I live, ever eat another state fair corn dog. That greasy damn thing made me sick. I swear it did. Oh, God. And to me, that was as true as 2 and 2 is 4. That's up, that's down. My blue jeans are blue, and that corn dog made me sick. You know, people talk about denial, but our book calls it delusion. See, because for me, it was the truth. That was my truth. That had to be the truth for me to function, to continue to drink. I can't imagine my life without drink, so it has to be the truth. And it wasn't until I met you guys in a treatment center some 8 months later that I began to consider another truth. I went to treatment against my will. I went to treatment to get off of Valium and to get on something else. Valium was kicking my ass because I was always out of Valium. I don't know about you guys, but take as prescribed. I don't know how to do that. And I take lots of medication. VA sends it to me in the mail. And I'm a dock worker. I can go to any doctor, anywhere. I just have to drive a little ways out of town to a clinic that hadn't seen me and drop my pants, and the poor doctor will go, "Ew, that hurts." And write me scripts for whatever I want. And but you guys came in and you started talking about your alcoholism, and it was a wonderful gift that you gave me. You know, they got me dried out and detoxed. I still didn't think I was alcoholic because I had all these excuses. But slowly y'all whittled away my excuses. You know, some of y'all grew up in houses like I grew up in. And some of y'all have known suicide in your family. And some of y'all had even served in the military. And some of you, had been married and divorced and married and divorced. Some of you had wives that weren't faithful. And wow, you know, we had an awful lot in common. But I always had my disability. You know, my disability, that was my, you just don't understand. That's my pat answer for everybody. You don't understand. This is horribly painful. And one day a guy came in and his life's unmanageable. He tried to commit suicide by asphyxiation. He turned the gas on in his house, and his best plan sucked too. He blew up his house. And he survived, but he was horribly burned. And this guy came in and he was screwed up. His fingers are burned off. He's just got little stubs where his fingers ought to be. And I mean, he was a mess. But he was sober and he was happy. He was the damnedest thing I ever saw. You know, and I could... Thank you all. Good night. But, you know, the trick for me was that people had tried to help me for a long time. And they always says, Otto, you drink too much. Otto, you take too much medication. Otto, you. And as soon as they'd say, Otto, I'd tune them out. Because nobody know nothing about me because I've never told anybody the truth. If my mouth's moving, I'm lying. I only want you to see me in the light I want to be seen in. I've never let myself be exposed. And so Otto, you doesn't work. But you guys came in and you said, Otto, I. That is Alcoholics Anonymous. That's how it works. One alcoholic talking to another in the first person. I do not try to describe the people I'm working with alcoholism. I describe mine. And they either identify or they don't. But I identified with you when you came into that hospital. And for me, it was like somebody had been telling a joke my whole life and I didn't get it. You know, Otto, you drink too much. Otto, you drink too much. No, I don't. No, I don't. And then it was all of a sudden, I drink too much. I'm alcoholic. Whoa, who'd have thought it? A stud like me. God. You know what? I think my mom, my dad, my brothers, we're all alcoholics. This was like, you gotta be kidding me news. You know, Mom, Dad, we're all alcoholics. They weren't as excited about it as I was. You know. But I was excited, you know, because this was, I tried everything I knew to do. I'm a good person. I tried everything I knew to do to get happy. All I want to do is be happy and have friends. And, you know, I've changed jobs, wives, hangouts, hobbies, vocations, careers. I've changed location. I've changed everything in my life I know to change. And it's always the same old I don't know why. And then I found out why. I'm alcoholic and I drink wherever I go. Wow. And it just made, you know, for me it was like this big gift of hope. Because you said alcoholism is a treatable disease. You know, and we treat it. We have a program of recovery for you. You know, and your life can be better than you ever dreamed. And I could see you guys were happy. And I got excited. I was willing to do whatever it was you guys were doing. And you give me the 5 things to do. And I was willing to do those things, even though I couldn't read. I was very much like Beth. You know, my eyes move across the page, but nothing's recorded. I go back to the top and do it again. Nothing. It's kind of hard to get it in there. Functionally illiterate, I guess. But I had a stumbling point when I was looking at the steps on the wall. You know, and it doesn't take long. Like minute we're proud of over alcohol, our lives are unmanageable. That was good news. Good news. Dad was wrong. Came to believe power greater than ourselves could restore sanity. My nickname was Crazy Otto. Had it on my license plate, you know, at school. No problem. Blew right through that. Made a decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God. Here's your spiritual speaker. God, damn. It's a God deal. I was livid. It's a God deal. Oh, let me out. I'm out of here. Here's your robe. I'm gone. You know. They said, well, if you leave, it'll be AMA. It'll be against the medical advice, and your insurance won't pay. You ever get indignant? I ain't paying for this. So I stayed, because I didn't want to pay, and didn't have nowhere else to go either. But it was really cool because what happened was you guys would come up and do individual 12-step work. You know, some people really do this HNI stuff. You know, and thank you for doing it. Yeah, I'm big on going into prisons. I wish someone had been going into prison when my brother was there. You know, and this one guy named Mike from the Western Club in Oklahoma City. He knows who he is. Mike F. He's heard this story many times. He didn't have a lot more sobriety than I did, and I only had a few weeks. And he was coming up to the hospital, and he's not real sharp. But he asked me, you know, what's your problem with the 3rd step, Otto? And boy, I just lit into him. If there's a God, where's he been? And what about mom and dad and brother and war? And then I told him about the day I was shot and making a decision that I don't believe anymore. And he, in all his wisdom, all his long sobriety, says to me, well, in that 3rd step, it doesn't say you have to believe in the God you gave up on in Vietnam. And with that statement, he let me out of the corner I had myself painted into for 20 years. I don't have to believe in the God I gave up on. He says, yeah, what would God have to be for you to take a chance and try and turn your will and your life over to his care? And I thought, now that's a ridiculous proposal. I'm going to define God? I thought I was supposed to figure out what God wanted me to be. You know, and then if I could be what he would have me be and do that, then I would receive grace. He says, no, what would God have to be? For you to take a chance and try and turn your will and your life over to his care, you keep control. Sounded better all the time. So I came up with a real simple concept of God. If God's all-powerful, if he's omnipotent, and all he wants with all his power is for me to stay sober and like it. Here's the hook. I have to like it, be living sober. And he says, okay, you pray to that God. Well, I didn't think that would work. That won't work. So I don't have any idea how long have I been talking. I really don't want to hurt you guys. And so I went to pray to that God. Not because I thought it would work, but because I was going to do everything you guys told me to do. Everything. And I was documented. I documented my meetings. I documented my calls to my sponsor. I documented you guys are seeing me pray in those meetings. I got witnesses galore that we are praying. I got guys that I'm in treatment with coming to my house every day. We are reading the big book aloud. Okay? I'm documenting that I'm doing everything because when I get drunk, I am going to sue Alcoholics Anonymous. And that was my sole motivation for at least 60 days of sobriety. You know, when I get drunk, I'm going to own all of this. You know, I'm going to, yeah, your clubhouse is going to be mine, yeah. And that's the truth. You know, I did a lot of things for the wrong reasons, and it's okay. Motives really don't matter. All the motives do is dictate whether or not you enjoy it while you're doing it. Because if you go to school and get a degree because your parents want you to, you still get the degree. You know, and if you do the things that are suggested in Alcoholics Anonymous just because your sponsor wants you to, you still get the benefits of having done what you do. Motives don't matter. Needless to say, I have yet to file that suit. Because once I started trying to do just the things you suggested, things started to get better. Things began to happen, magical things. God began to show himself to me. Here comes your spiritual speaker. I mean, things happened that I was literally like this. I'm watching to see what he might do. Because you guys claim he does. And I don't want to miss it. Whatever it is. You know, I had some problems. You know, getting a sponsor is a really good idea. You know, praying was difficult for me. I was in a room with several guys, and I didn't want them to see me pray, so I'd wait till I go to bed to pray. And then what do? You know, I got this dilemma. Should I pleasure myself and pray, or should I pray and pleasure myself? You know, I do that every night. You know, I'm pulling on Willie every night, and that's how I get to sleep. And I don't know which one to do first. I mean, I'm scared to death if God, you know, if there is a God and I pleasure myself first, then he may be mad, not listen. And if there is a God and I pleasure myself first, then he might be pissed and not answer my prayer. So what'd you do? I didn't take no chances. So in a very relaxed state, my first prayer went something like this. Dear God, help me. I wonder what Pat's doing. I bet there's a pickup truck in her driveway right now. I'll bet she's with some damn cowboy right now. I'm going to kill that bitch. I swear. And that's the way my mind was. My mind was just like a ball in a pinball machine. Just yeah, I couldn't pray or think, you know, God help me was about as far as I could get. But fortunately, God doesn't make too hard of terms for those that seek him. And God help me is good enough. I promise you can't do it wrong. You cannot ask God for help wrong. Can't be done. If one of my kids needs help, all they have to do is scream help. They don't have to come and say, Daddy, please. Daddy, please. Just help. And that was enough for God to help me. And magical things began to happen in my life. Simple things. And I've talked too long to tell you about many of them, but I'm going to tell you a couple just because they're so magnificent. My family has been restored. I am happier, healthier, more whole physically, emotionally, socially, legally, financially, maritally, parentally than I've ever been in my life. I just finished building the grandest tree house for my granddaughter that you have ever seen. I was going to be a one weekend project up in Norman, Oklahoma, you know, a couple $100, build her a little tree house. I drove back and forth for 2 months, and there's a McMansion in the tree out behind her house. And then after I got finished, I thought, you know what? She's going to have sex in that tree. I'm up there knocking walls down, you know. Anyway, I was sober a couple of years. And my first wife comes to me. She says, "You're doing so good. You take the little bitch before I kill her." And my daughter come to live with me. She didn't like it. She came from the nice house with the Dooneyburg purses and the Guess jeans and the nice high school to an inner city school in a little house where they had to cut the canopy off the bed to get it in the room. She did not like being there with me. She made life miserable for me. And I'd go to my sponsor and I'd say, "Johnny, she's a pig. She's a little pig." And he says, "No, Otto, she's not a pig. She's 13. And she's scared to death. She has no idea where she is or what you're going to do. I said, but she won't clean her room. She won't bring the dishes out. She won't do her laundry. She doesn't do anything. He says, close the door. Close the door to the room. I started going to Al-Anon. And this is a true story. I got sober in AA. I got happy in Al-Anon. I have 22 years in Al-Anon, and I'm active. I attend meetings on a weekly basis, if not 1, 2. Because Al-Anon has saved me because I didn't know how to have relationships. And in Al-Anon, they've taught me how to get right-sized and allow my people to do what they want to do instead of what I would have them do. Anyway, the little bitch comes to live with me. She could talk, and I want to pull the lips off of her face. I mean, I cannot believe the things she can say to me. I know she comes by it honestly, but after a while of this, just I'm going to love you no matter what. I'm going to love you the way we love each other in AA. I'm going to love you the way God loves us all. And I meant that. Because in here I learned that God loves me because He's God, not because I'm good. And you guys loved me because you were understanding alcoholics, not because I was deserving. And when I first sponsored somebody who had nothing to give me, and I wanted so much for them to recover, that I fell in love with them. And I come to understand what love really is. That love is to give, not to get.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
Wow. So I'm trying real hard to just love my daughter, and I'm not prosecutor, I'm not punisher, I'm not dictator, I'm not teacher, I'm not guider, I'm not advisor, I'm taxi. I'm taxi. Taxi and ATM. Taxi, ATM. Doing the best I can do. But you know what? After a while, she started to trust me, and we started to get along, and we're doing better. She turned 16. I bought her a little car. Wasn't much of a car. I didn't have much money, but she's not much of a driver, so it didn't matter. And it was this little crap car, and it was a little 82 Honda Prelude. You just step on the gas, and it makes more noise. It doesn't go faster. The only thing that moves is the tack. I figure she can't get hurt in that. But she comes to me one night, and I've got this cool little sports car that's convertible with kicker stereo, new top. So I'm a car guy. And she says, Dad, can we take the convertible? It was a beautiful night. Beautiful night. She's been so good. Be careful. Be careful. Put the top down the way they went. Wasn't 30 minutes. Ring! Dad, I was going too fast and I crashed the car. You okay? Kristen, okay? Can you drive the car? Where are you at? Where they're not supposed to be. Stay right there at that phone. Stay right there. I'll be there, and I'm coming. You stay right there at the phone. I hung the phone up. All bets are off. I'm not calling my sponsor. This little bitch is dead. All promises of love and care not and whatnot. Anything but my car. You just don't mess with my car. And so I'm in this little Prelude, trying to go get her, and I'm about to pull the steering wheel off this thing because it will not get me there fast enough. And I got that conversation going on in my head where she's going to say, and then I'm going to say, and when she says, I'll say, and then she'll say, and then I'll say, and then, and I happened to hear her say, Dad, I was going too fast and I crashed the car. Whoa. That's not novel. That's the first time I believe in all my family history that anybody ever copped to anything. All we used to ever say is, I didn't mean it. I was just kidding. Nobody ever owned anything. Nobody ever said, oh, yeah, I did that. Man, I really feel bad about it. When I wrecked the family car when I was a kid, I told my dad, a deer ran out in front of me and I swerved to miss it. It wasn't true. I was just going too fast. And my dad got there and picked me up at my ear and damn near beat me to death. Don't you know what that's going to do to insurance? Didn't I tell you to be careful? Don't you know what that car means to this family? Damn near beat me to death. And I was able to go to Holly that night and comfort her. See, because she knows what that car means to me, and she knows what it's going to do to insurance. She knows I told her to be careful. She is dying. She is sick to her stomach over what she's done. She feels horrible. Isn't that a great time for Dad to come whip your ass? Now, I go and I comfort Holly and I do what's important and we grow closer. And today Holly's 37 and we're doing great. And I get to spend lots of time with my granddaughter. And it's amazing. I was 7 years sober, and I'm at the car races on a Friday night where I always go. And something makes me get up and go home. Now, y'all can think, maybe God, this is a spiritual speaker, okay? But I'm not going to say it was God. I'm just going to say something made me get up and go home in the middle of a perfectly good racing program. The car count was good. The track was fast. The racing show was good. And I got up and went home. I was very sad as I left the grandstand. I'm wondering why. Where's my passion? Why am I going home? There's something terribly wrong. And I was just a sad guy leaving the racetrack. It's as if something had been taken away from me. And I got home. My wife was shocked to see me. What are you doing here? I mean, I travel to the races. I don't miss races. I said, I don't know. I just didn't watch TV tonight. Sat down 9 o'clock Friday night, turned on the television. 2020 was coming on. They used to do 3 little vignettes each night. And the first vignette was called The Gift of Life. And it showed a helicopter flying over the jungles of Vietnam. And they started telling a story about this emergency room doctor who was one of the top trauma specialists in the nation. And the guy interviewing him asked him, what was your worst trauma case that you ever tended to? And he began to recount when he was a young surgeon at the 71st Medevac in Pleiku, Vietnam on September 21st, 1968, when they brought in a young man whose legs had been blown off and whose arms had been destroyed and whose face was destroyed. And he had shrapnel the size of your thumb in the middle of his brain. His eyes were gone. The consensus was to medicate him, set him aside, declare him expectant, and let him die. He's too messed up to save. He would have no quality of life. But Dr. Swan went against the consensus and operated on this kid. And the guy doing the interview says, well, how'd he turn out? And Dr. Swan had no idea. He had never even looked back. He just treated the next patient. So it took him 2 years to find him. His name's Ken McGarity, and he lives in Columbus, Georgia. And he was a door gunner on a helicopter trying to drop firefighting equipment, infantryman pinned down in the jungle on September 21st, 1960. I sat on that sofa and I just started to shake. And my wife came over and hung on to me and said, what's the matter? What's the matter? And I said, I think this is my kid. I think this is my nightmare. I swear this is just how it happened. It's the date, it's the place, it's the scenario. And I've talked a long time. This is a wonderful story, but indeed it was. It was this young man. And I could prove it because I was decorated for heroism that day by the commander of his helicopter. And when I provided him with the name of that commander, then he couldn't deny that it was I and a kid named Kenny that got him out of there that day. And that started a conversation between Kenny and I. Kenny had a lot of problems with post-traumatic stress. You can imagine his life is very difficult. He has no legs, none, not even stubs. He sits on his tailbone. His left arm is reattached at the shoulder backwards. It goes behind him when it's just natural. He sits like this, one arm in front, one arm in back on his tailbone. There are no eyes in his head, and his face is terribly scarred. And he can feel with 2 fingers. Yet, since Vietnam, he has married a woman he met talking on the CB radio. He has fathered 2 children. He sails. He scuba dives. He's charismatic. He's hilarious. He's funny. He's got personality. But he suffers horribly from post-traumatic stress disorder. And he abuses drugs and alcohol in his family. Well, on the show it said that Kenny needed help because he didn't know what happened to him in Vietnam. And I reached out to Kenny, not knowing what all would happen, but what happened was Kenny got sober. When I did my 4-step, I told my sponsor I'll do anything except go back to Vietnam, thinking that he would let me off the hook from doing a 4-step. I wasn't thoroughly ready to do a thorough and fearless moral inventory, so therefore I get to not do one. He said, no, just do what you can, and in God's time, we'll deal with the other. Well, it was God's time. Because as I'm trying to help Kenny get home, Kenny dragged me back to all that hell over there. And he knew the call signs and the names. He told me who that was burning to death in that helicopter that day. He dragged me through hell, and it was a suffering, but I needed it. You know, I had never healed. I still had the nightmares. HBO was going to make a movie about Kenny and Dr. Swan. Tom Cruise. Nobody ever called me. Stories about the Kenny and Doctor. And I'm pissed. But I can't let anybody know that. You know, I don't want to be that selfish. But anyway, Kenny sends me a request for memorabilia. Bastard. And so anyway, I put it together and I put a cover letter with it. In the cover letter I wrote, Kenny, I got a resentment, buddy. I've got a resentment. He's sober a little while now. I got a resentment. And all the time we've talked, and we've talked tens and tens and tens and tens of hours. And all the time we've talked, you've never thanked me for saving your life. It was no small feat. I'm decorated. I got medals. Running into a burning jungle when you don't know where the enemy is, shooting at your ass. I don't think thank you's too much to ask. I made the mistake of showing it to my wife before I mailed it. What's this here? You never said thank you. I said, that's the truth. I live in the truth. She said, isn't there some kind of a spiritual thing, you know, if there's a bug up your ass, it's your bug, or, you know. I just hate it. I just hate it when, you know, a pigeon or the wife gets you, you know. I hate it. So anyway, I went back to my word processor. You know, I didn't have a computer, just a little word processor. And I'm just trying to make it make sense so I don't have to rewrite this whole damn letter. And what comes out was God's gift to me. What came out was the healing that I needed. Because what came out was one sentence. Kenny, I've never said thank you. For all those years, I'd only seen me running into a burning jungle to get Kenny. Another truth. I'm trapped in a burning jungle. Kenny's safe in a helicopter. Kenny flies into harm's way to help me and my squad. And when that rocket hit that helicopter, he gave his legs and he gave his sight and he entered into that darkness and that disability for me. And no one had ever told him thank you. He never even got a citation. Selfish, self-centered. That is the root of our problems. My problems are of my own making. If I'm unhappy about something, then I just don't have all the information. God knows. God knows. And all I have to do is avail myself to His knowledge and His understanding and His wisdom. If I'll just try to get in harmony with His will for me, doing this simple program, not easy, then more will be revealed. More will be revealed. I'm married 22 years today and we still like each other. How do you get to there from where I grew up? You know, they told me if I could ever go 10 years without infection, I'd be a candidate for a hip reconstruction. Not an artificial hip, a reconstruction, because I don't have anything resembling a hip. I never could go more than a year without pus coming out of me and pieces of shrapnel and stuff. 10 years sober, I'm 10 years without infection. Go figure. You know what? I always thought that I had the pain, so I took the pills. And I drank to mask the pain. Today I know that I took the pills and I drank and it masked the pain and I did things I shouldn't. And because of what I did under the influence, I would not allow myself to heal. And when I couldn't take dope anymore, I quit hurting myself. And I started parking in handicap slots, and I started walking with a cane, and I let somebody else mow my yard, and I played 9 holes of golf instead of 36. And lo and behold, 10 years later, I'm without infection. And today, you know, for 28 years, I could not sit in a chair. For 28 years, I was stiff straight up and down. I had not touched my left foot for 28 years. I couldn't cut my own toenails. I couldn't put on my own sock for 28 years. I couldn't sit on a toilet for 28 years. I couldn't sit in the back of a car. I couldn't ride a bicycle. All the furniture in my home's custom. It's all bar height. The toilet's tall so that I can sit on the toilet. Everything's custom. Today, I can sit just like you can. I said, just like you can. I can sit on the toilet. I want you all to think about this next time next time you're taking a dump. If I was at your house or if I was on an airplane, I'd just have to straddle that damn thing and hope. And my old sphincter's crooked because of the way that everything blew up and you don't know where it's going. I'm just praying for a firm one, you know. And today I can sit down, put my elbows on my knees, and have no worry. It's wonderful. And I live pain-free, you know, beyond my wildest dreams. Never would I have put on my list of things I wanted in sobriety that I would be physically whole again, that I would live pain-free. Those things are impossible. That I would have my family back. That when my father died, I would bury a loved one, not a lovable one. Someone I'd known the joy of loving for years. You all taught me how to do that. How to love the unlovable. If you haven't figured out how to love the unlovable, come on over to Al-Anon. Anyway, I live in a world that I didn't know existed. Truly. And I owe it all to a loving God and this fellowship. I took the 12 steps. I've had a spiritual awakening as the result, not a result, one of many. Don't take the steps to get sober. It won't work. We take the steps to enrich our relationship with the God of our understanding. And today I got a guy that I'm tight with. And he does for me so much that I can't do for myself. If he can get me to my airplane, he's going to be amazing. Thank you all for letting me share.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. Shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.